Hello, welcome back to the Star Wars Mark of Balance podcast. I'm Mark, and today we're going to be talking about Mandalorian Season 2. I know I'm late. I get it. You don't need to tell me. I know. I already watched it, but I didn't have a podcast, so I couldn't talk about it. I'm basically just going to run through the episodes. I have the IMDb page open. I'm going to run through the episodes and just give my thoughts off the top of my head for each one, and then I'll kind of wrap it up all together in the end to talk about what I thought about it as the season as a whole. So I'm just going to get right into it with Chapter 9, The Marshal. I'll be honest, for a season premiere of one of the most anticipated shows on TV, I expected a lot more from this first episode. The visuals were great. I really love the Tusken Raiders being involved in the story more than just raising their rifles above their head and screaming. But I think this episode really exposes the flaw that will continue a little bit throughout. That it's almost a meme at this point that every episode of Mando is he needs to get something. The people on the planet say they can give it to him, but they have to help him with this. So then he does that and he gets the thing. And then he goes to the next planet and just repeats. I think this theme kind of starts with this episode because it's the season 2 premiere. There was this big hype at the end of season 1, like, oh, Moff Gideon's coming after him. And the only thing this episode really advances forward is that Boba Fett will be in the season when it showed up at the end. And when it shows up at the end, it's not even a big surprise because with a lot of things this season, everything was spoiled before the episodes even aired. I mean, I think a month before we already knew Ahsoka, Boba Fett, and Bo-Katan were going to be in this season. And those were supposed to be huge, big surprise moments. And that was kind of taken away from us with this. The whole Krayt Dragon scene was really cool, but I kind of didn't get their plan. Their plan should have been for the Krayt Dragon to swallow the Bantha in the beginning and let the explosives blow up inside. But instead they did this thing where they did a line of explosives and then the Bantha was just the bait. It seemed like it was just done that way just to get a whole fight scene out of it when it really could have been simplified. But overall, it was a fun episode like most episodes are, and it kind of made me readjust my expectations for Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is an episodic show, and I have to get used to that. And I think moving forward, Star Wars needs to actually get away from these episodic shows and do more linear story-based episodes every week. And I think they are. I think that's actually happening with the series that they've announced moving forward. So I'm excited to see them kind of step away from that episodic structure with all the limited series that they're coming out with, like Obi-Wan and all these other, like Cassian Andor and all that. Episode 2, The Passenger, kind of the same concept of the first one. Do this so you can get that. I actually did like this episode a lot more because I think the family dynamic was really important in this one, even though Grogu started eating eggs. So the family dynamic was destroyed just a little bit. But overall, I really like this episode. I loved seeing Dave Filoni, obviously. Every time he's on screen, I get excited. And I think the spider battles was really intense. But it was kind of weird that these spiders weren't the same ones from Rebels, like they were like a little different species. I don't know. I think it's a little overboard to be like, oh, this is a different species of this spider. I'm like, I don't know. Could have just been the same spider. Been a cool call to the Rebels fans. Whatever. But overall, I like this episode. I like the comedy of Grogu just eating everything in sight. Frog eggs, spider eggs, anything. I mean, like, if you're around this guy, you gotta watch out for your children. And it had a lot of heart because his mom is just trying to protect her eggs, trying to protect her children, and try and reunite with her husband. I don't know how frog people's relationships work. But moving on to The Heiress. Really cool episode. Seeing Bo-Katan and seeing her armor in live action. That first taste of seeing a Clone Wars character, other than Saw Gerrera, but that was kind of small. In live action, I really did get a lump in my throat. I mean, it was awesome to see it evolve from an animated show that not a lot of people watched to it being part of the biggest show on TV right now. The fights were intense, the Quarren being terrible again like they were in the Clone Wars. It was a fun episode, and I really liked the action, and seeing a bunch of Mandalorians just take down stormtroopers was awesome. And kind of introducing that Moff Gideon, sinister side was really good with that one general kind of offing himself. And though some people might have thought it was weird, I really liked that they added Grogu playing with the babies after they hatch, even though he just like ate their brothers and sisters. It was cool to see him learn that lesson of, maybe everything isn't food that you have to eat, like the eggs of the spider too. But overall, I like this episode a lot. The next episode, The Siege, it was great seeing Mando, Cara, and Greef together again. It was awesome to see that chemistry back from season 1. But overall, this episode didn't really do it for me because it was kind of just walk down a hallway, shoot stormtroopers, walk down a hallway, shoot stormtroopers. It was cool to see that one guy from the first episode of the series where he was frozen in carbonite. It was cool to see him back. He had some good comic relief. But overall, I didn't think the episode advanced the story much other than the last portion where they're talking about harvesting the blood of Grogu and using it for some experiment. I mean, I think we all assume it's for Palpatine to bring him back using the midichlorians and kind of take that Force-sensitive blood and bring it into a new creature or, zombie version of a creature. But who knows, maybe not. Maybe it's for Snoke and all the clones that Palpatine makes of him. Or it's something deeper in that and it's not as obvious, which I really hope it is. And can we talk about the dumbest line ever uttered in Star Wars? Did you lose anyone on Alderaan? Dude, the planet got obliterated. I'd be surprised if someone 7 planets over didn't lose someone when the Alderaan got destroyed. Tell Lucasfilm to call me up. I can write better stuff than this. Now, Episode 5, The Jedi. I mean, they waste no time putting Ahsoka front and center. I mean, I was expecting a big reveal, music swelling, but they just went boom, right in your face, white lightsabers, kicking ass. I mean, it was awesome. And I think Rosario Dawson nailed an older Ahsoka in live action. I mean, in some points, her voice actually sounded just like Ahsoka. I think it was when she was outside the gates, when she was infiltrating with Mando again. She sounded exactly like Clone Wars Ahsoka. It was awesome. But, like I said, we knew it was coming to some extent. I mean, there's a lot of reports that week's episode Ahsoka was going to be in it, so that surprise, that really visceral reaction we would have had if we didn't know she was in it would have been so much better. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But this episode did a lot of great things. The Western style of the action and the samurai was a really cool combo. Hearing Ahsoka mention Thrawn is so awesome. I can't wait to see him in live action, because I do think he was misused in Rebels. He had his moments, but I feel he was never able to reach that truly sinister level within Rebels because it was more of a kids-based show. That I hope in the live-action Ahsoka series that we can really see that side of him. I think all the Force training and then finally hearing Grogu's name, I mean, even when he makes that doop sound every time he says Grogu is just hilarious. And what I thought was really interesting about this episode in Ahsoka is that she is referred to as a Jedi and she refers to herself as a Jedi. Now, this is after Rebels where she says, I am no Jedi. So I'm thinking something must have happened between then and now in the timeline where she would revoke that statement and identify as that Jedi again. She might realize that the galaxy does need Jedi, but they need to be a modified Jedi. Just like Luke was trying to tell everyone in Last of Jedi, the Jedi have to end. Maybe Ahsoka's not on that train exactly, but she's kind of on the idea of the galaxy does need Jedi. It just can't be the same Jedi that she grew up with. And that moment where she says, I've seen what it does to the best of us. Ooh, what a gut shot. But a great moment. And how could I forget the heat that Ludwig brought at the end of this episode, bringing that Ahsoka theme back from the Clone Wars and Rebels and amping it up for live action was awesome. I think her melody is one of the best in Star Wars. Next episode, The Tragedy. I mean, really awesome seeing Boba Fett actually be a badass. I mean, let's be honest, in the original trilogy, the only cool thing he ever did was get eaten. I mean, he didn't really do much in the original trilogy. So actually seeing him 40 years later, in all of his glory, taking down stormtroopers left and right with just the staff, was really cool. And then obviously RIP to the Razor Crest. I just got the Lego for Christmas, and I should probably just smash it now because that's what it is canonically. It's gone now, so that was tough. And then seeing Grogu, connect with the Jedi like that, it was very interesting visually with that Force shield and everything. It was very interesting. But I kind of theorized from this episode what we might get later on in the last episode that I'll talk about. But overall, fun episode, more action, more stormtroopers getting killed. I mean, that was kind of like the main thing happening in this season. Moving on to the next episode, The Believer, which I actually think is my favorite episode of the season. I mean, I love Bill Burr. Me and my sister actually saw him during quarantine. He did an outside show on the lawn. It was awesome. He was hilarious as always. And I never thought I'd say it, but he was the best cameo in The Mandalorian. I mean, between Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, and then obviously someone else later, I think he is the best cameo that we've had in The Mandalorian. I mean, he fills that gray area character just as good as Mando does. And every scene he's in, he steals it, whether he's being funny, serious, or tragic. It was all great stuff with Bill Burr. He absolutely killed it as Mayfield. And then talking about that Operation Cinder across from that officer, and me remembering from Battlefront 2, how they literally just glassed an entire Imperial city for the Empire. It was awesome, and the fight scenes on top of the those big armored trucks was really fun because it wasn't just blaster firing, just boom, 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 taking everyone out. It was hand to hand. It was gritty. It was creative. I really liked that too, and I really liked how at one point the Imperials are almost the saviors of the episode as they're pulling in. They're the ones you're like almost excited to see, like, oh, thank God stormtroopers are here. Oh, thank God TIE fighters are here. I mean, that never happens in Star Wars, and they pulled it off really well in this one. And then the episode wraps up. Obviously, they escape, and Bill Burr destroys the whole base, and he's like, any way to go to sleep at night. And I think it's a really full circle episode. I feel like every theme that was introduced in the beginning paid off by the end, and I think Mayfield has become a great character, and I really hope we see him some more for sure. And I already know Bill Burr's probably like, great, now I gotta do this Star Wars stuff again. This is ridiculous. But he was awesome. And I really like Rick Fumagawa's writing style in all of his episodes that he's directed. I like what themes he explores, and I hope he's on their radar to either, lead a series like Deborah Cho is, or write a movie. I think he needs to tell his story on a larger scale, definitely. And now finally to the last episode. This one was a doozy for sure. I'll be honest, I don't think it started out very strong. Getting onto the ship was very simple, and then it just became, something that's kind of been a reoccurring in Mandalorian, where it's just, going down the hallways and just mowing down stormtroopers left and right, like very easily, not much friction or fight back from them. So I was a little hesitant, like, oh, how are they going to wrap this up? Moff Gideon's got to really pull this off. I really liked the battle with Mando and the Death Trooper. That was really awesome. But then they got sucked away. I was like, oh, well, that happened. So then we finally get to Moff Gideon and Grogu in the cell and the Darksaber's out. At first I was like, yeah, this guy's lying, of course. And then the whole battle ensues and Moff Gideon's defeated. And I was kind of like, oh, man, like, you build up this character and he just gets defeated so easily. But what he really was doing was setting up another conflict between them, which I think was really great, and I think it made him an even better villain, that he had this deep and darker plan. So basically Mando brings him up to the bridge, and then Bo-Katan and Mando are looking at each other like, so that Darksaber right there. And Bo-Katan's like, and Moff Gideon, his plan, you can finally see his plan, like, he initiated that battle with Mando because if he won, he keeps Grogu, but if he loses, Mando gets the sword, and he knows Bo-Katan is also after the sword, so he knew that would create some internal conflict between them. And I love the line where Mando's just like, I yield. Here, just take the sword. Even though you took it from Sabine, like, why can't you take it now? So obviously that's going to be explored in Season 3, I think, why Bo-Katan has to actually win the sword this time, so we'll see. But I really like this conflict, and it made Moff Gideon a lot better than I thought he would be, because I thought they let us down a little with him. And then the moment of truth. So you see the single X-Wing, and at that point, I knew it had to be Luke. Because when Grogu was on the stone and he sent out that message, I didn't see Cal coming, even though they do have a live-action Cal. I don't see Ezra coming yet. I think that's what the Ahsoka series will deal with. And I was like, the only person it would make sense for was Luke to be there. He's looking for Padawans. He's looking to start a new Jedi Academy. It only made sense. And I knew that whole episode on the planet where Grogu was sitting on the stone wasn't for nothing. I knew it had to have some deeper meaning. I knew someone had to come. I knew it wasn't just, oh, Razor Crest is gone, Grogu got captured, that's it. I knew there had to be some signal that was actually sent out to Jedi. And then Luke just comes through and just mows everyone down, and I had a smile, I had chills, I had everything. It was awesome. And Ludwig really outdid himself with the score in this scene. He's got this single guitar strumming, he's got these low epic voices in the background, and then it all builds together to the Force theme. Ooh, chills. I love when you can bring in that old Star Wars feeling and those themes and melodies and mend them in with something modern and new. He does a great job with it. But the best part of the episode was when Grogu asked Mando to take his helmet off. Man, were the man tears flowing. That moment where he reached for his helmet and you knew he just wanted to see his face. This guardian that's been with him for these 2 seasons, he just wanted to see his face finally. And seeing Pedro Pascal's great performance of taking off the mask and seeing Grogu being able to touch his face, I mean, that was emotion to the next level. One of the best moments in Star Wars for sure. and then seeing R2-D2 pop out and seeing another little species that looks like Yoda, he's probably like, oh no, he's going to hit me, he's going to do all this dumb stuff to me, just like Yoda did on Dagobah. So I really liked that nod too. That was awesome. Obviously, the CGI for Luke wasn't great. I kind of thought they would maybe leave his hood on and just use his voice, but it was awesome to see him anyway. It was fine. I thought Sebastian Stan would actually make the appearance that we're expecting, but I guess not, which is fine. I think Mark Hamill should be the only one to play Luke of all time. No one else. But Disney has made it clear that they're not afraid to recast, so we'll see. But obviously, Luke's cameo is awesome. Really well done. And yeah, that's the end of the season there. It's going to be interesting where they pick up from now. I think it's mostly going to be Bo-Katan and Mando's relationship being a little rocky for the first couple episodes, trying to figure out, what are they going to do about this Darksaber? What can they do to restore Mandalore? All this internal conflict. And I think we won't see any of Grogu next season. I think they'll have like a long break from him, so maybe by the end of the series or maybe by the end of next season. And Mando's going to see him, and it's going to be like a Monsters, Inc. moment where they open the closet and she's going to say, Kitty! And now Grogu's going to see Mando and be like, Din! And he'll maybe know a couple words, and it'll be like that kind of reunion maybe. But yeah, I don't know. And then the end credit scene with the Book of Boba Fett. I'm going to talk about that in my announced shows episodes where I talk about all the shows that have been announced. But the scene was cool, and the final shot was tough. It was a tough shot. I liked it. But yeah, I'll definitely get into that a little more when I talk about all the other shows that have been announced. So overall, I think Season 2 of Mando wasn't as good as Season 1. I think it kind of fell into a rut of go to planet, get thing, need to do something for local people to get thing, do thing for local people, get thing, move on to the next planet, and hallway shooting and destruction of stormtroopers with little to no resistance. But I think visually it stepped itself up. I believe all the side characters had great seasons this year for sure. I thought Mando's growth was great. And yeah, obviously excited for next season. Don't know where they're going to go, but I think it'll be fun to find out. And I know I might have sounded a little overcritical on this season. I think the main thing I'm still hung up on is the show only has 8 episodes a season, and some of the episodes are only 30 minutes long. And I know most of these episodes are filmed like a whole movie production, like there's a lot that goes into them, and it's movie quality, which I always respect. I guess it's just the content to release ratio for me. I want the story to always keep moving forward, and when I feel an episode kind of sacrifices the story moving forward for like a fun side quest, I feel like it's kind of like we as the viewer miss out, if that makes sense. And that's why I was always a fan of Clone Wars being episodic, because you got 22 episodes a season. Even though they were 30 minutes, you were getting a lot of episodes. With this, I think it comes out to be like 6 hours of content a year. So I'm fine with episodic. It just has to be more episodes. So, as a total, I just expect more story-centric episodes when there's less episodes. Yeah, that's what I meant. I just said episodes a lot, but I didn't want to sound pretentious and call them chapters. I wish I could have gotten a little more in-depth with these episodes, but I'm already a couple weeks out, and I don't want to extend this over 8 weeks of me breaking down each episode. Maybe in the future, if I feel like an episode really stood out, I will, but I'll mostly be sticking to reactions week to week when shows are newly released, like The Bad Batch in the spring. And as always, I want to hear from you guys if you agree with me or disagree with anything, or you just want to discuss the season as a whole. Definitely hit me up on Instagram at @star_wars_mark of balance, or on Twitter at Mark of Balance. Obviously love talking about Star Wars, so hearing from you guys would be awesome. And I will talk to you guys next time. As always, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you.